and welcome to Transporeon Journal. I'm Adrian Gonzalez, president of Adelante SEM, and it's great to be back as your host for this month's edition. It's officially autumn, and the weather is a bit cooler here in the Northern Hemisphere, and the days are getting a bit shorter too. But if you're a supply chain or logistics professional, there aren't enough hours in the day to deal with the challenges that continue to plague the industry. Port congestion, labor shortages, capacity constraints, material and equipment shortages, all these problems that have dominated the headlines the past few months continue today. If you look at the capacity index on Transporeon Insights, for example, a reading under 100 indicates a capacity-constrained environment, and the September 2021 reading was 89.8, a 7% decrease from a year ago when it was 96.6, and a 16% decrease from 2019 when it was 107.4. Another example is this October 17th headline from Bloomberg, quote, "Supply chain chaos, surging costs set to plague Europe's profits." Jose Antonio Montero de Espinosa, head of European equities at Santander Asset Management, states in the article, quote, "Special attention must be paid to the impact that logistical problems in supply chains, rising energy costs, and upward pressure on labor costs may have on results. During the third quarter, we have witnessed one of the periods with the greatest increase in inflation expectations in Europe," end quote. Take a look at Central and Eastern Europe, for example. As IHS Markit reports in an October 18th article, many countries in the region are facing high shortages of materials and equipment, as well as labor. In particular, Slovenia, Hungary, and Poland are most affected, while Romania is doing well in comparison. Among the industries most impacted by these shortages are motor vehicle manufacturing, computer and electronics, and rubber and plastics. According to the article, quote, "The logistics crunch has contributed to a surge in industrial producer prices across Central Europe, further affected by labor shortages, which are driving up salaries, rising energy costs, impacted by surging natural gas prices, high industrial capacity utilization levels, and an overstressed transportation system." If you've been paying attention, the quote I referenced earlier by Espinosa and the IHS Markit article both mention another factor that is adding cost and complexity to supply chains. That is, rising energy costs. For carriers and transportation executives, this means rising diesel prices. Here in the United States, for example, on-highway diesel fuel prices were $3.71 per gallon on October 25th. That's $1.33 higher than a year ago, a 56% increase. The situation is very similar in Europe. On the morning I'm recording this episode, I took a look at diesel prices on Transporeon Insights. This is a new metric that was introduced recently, and it shows the pump price in euro, inclusive of all taxes, for 1 liter of diesel fuel in the origin country of the lane selected. The diesel price is updated once a week. Over the past 13 months, for example, diesel prices have increased 52% in Luxembourg, 51% in Germany, and 46% in Sweden. In the past 3 months alone, diesel prices have increased 16% in Germany, 14% in Denmark, and 13% in Luxembourg. Why does this matter? Well, fuel is generally the second highest operating cost for carriers, after driver salary and benefits. For example, in an analysis done using data from the American Transportation Research Institute, fuel costs accounted for about 21% of total operating costs for carriers in the United States in 2020, compared to 44% for driver salary and benefits. But this was when diesel prices were about $2.43 per gallon. Well, diesel prices up 56% compared to a year ago, and driver wages higher too. Total operating expenses are on the rise for carriers. While cost drivers are different across Europe, especially when it comes to fuel taxes, the relative operating costs are similar. For example, as highlighted in a May 2021 white paper by Freiken titled "What You Need to Know About Truck Operating Costs," the annual fuel cost for a 4x2 compact sleeper cab tractor running at 31 tons gross combined weight and covering 90,000 kilometers a year is around 26,164 pounds sterling. That is about 25% of that particular truck's total operating cost, compared to 37% for driver-related costs. The bottom line is that these diesel price increases are driving up total operating costs for carriers, which will put upward pressure on spot rates and play a bigger role in contract rate negotiations heading into 2022. Will diesel prices continue to increase in the weeks and months ahead? That's the million-dollar question. And it all depends on what happens on the supply side with the oil market, as well as on the demand side with global economy and energy demands. As reported by Reuters on November 1st, analysts expect OPEC Plus countries to maintain a gradual monthly production increase of 400,000 barrels per day. And according to a survey of 41 analysts and economists conducted by Reuters at the end of October, oil prices are forecast to average $80.92 a barrel in the fourth quarter this year and $78.74 in the first quarter of 2022. So while not as high as the $100 per barrel some were predicting, it's certainly higher than the average price of $69.52 per barrel so far this year. What can you do to mitigate this rising cost? Well, as a shipper or carrier, you have very little direct control over the price of oil and diesel, but you have the power to reduce the number of trucks required to transport products by eliminating empty miles and backhauls, developing smarter packaging, optimizing trailer loading, collaborative shipping, and other approaches. For example, a few years ago, I moderated a panel discussion at an industry conference where an executive from a major CPG company shared how the company, through packaging changes and other initiatives, had taken over 29 million miles out of its network over a 3-year period and had increased its CWT per truck from 382 to 415 over that time, an 8.6% improvement. Put differently, before the packaging changes, the company was leaving 11.2% of the truck unutilized, and after the changes, only 3.5% of the legal maximum was unutilized. Another way to eliminate waste and inefficiency from transportation operations is to leverage the power of the network. That is, a network-based technology platform to match real-time freight demand with capacity in a faster, smarter, and more automated way. Fewer trucks, driving fewer miles, translates into less overall fuel consumption and costs. So there you have it. My 2 cents for this month. Well, 2 cents plus 5.4% for inflation. I'll see you next month. Until then, thank you for tuning in to Transporeon Journal and stay happy.